Doing this. So we're doing this project in Østerbro, in the Sandkjelds corridor of Copenhagen, and the briefing we got was that it's a little boring. That there's not a lot of places to meet, no like coffee shops or anything like that, and the city, the commune, or I mean, the city is represented by Mess, was trying to stimulate more sort of interaction. That I think that's changed a bit. It's seeming like maybe meeting places aren't really what the neighborhood wants. It seems like people who live here are actually really happy with how it is. They like it more quiet.
A little bit more current. I think I speak for a lot of the students when they're right now in all four of the groups. They're questioning the idea that the current neighborhood that we're focusing on actually needs to be revitalized, and they're wondering where that idea has come from to begin with, because they're experiencing a lot of through the interview process and spending nights with people that there isn't a public.
No, they're content. Yeah.
And do you think that that's something real, and where does that come from?
Well, I think it's a political decision to support this project out there, which I think it's probably. They probably have statistics that this area, first of all, like the whole area of Østerbro, I don't know if they have been received as much as support as some of the other areas. So there's something like we have to give this part of the city some money as well. And the reason why they they draw these lines, I think, is because they have statistics that shows that there are probably an increasing amount of crime, there's an increasing amount of alienation, blah, 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 something. And then investing the money now would probably be a good effect rather than waiting 10 years and then it'll be really hard. They have to spend even more money to create improvement in the city and livelihood, etc. So I think it's strictly political.
Okay. And this is just, I'm sort of discovering in this process of the documentary that this may not actually be true. But the students have gone through a little bit of a process where there's this idea presented that the neighborhood needs these meeting places. And that is just out there from the beginning. And then they've come in and they're starting to do some research, and they're starting to talk to people that live in the neighborhood, and there's over and over again, the dialogue reveals, we like this neighborhood the way it is. It's quiet. And we like it that way. So I wanted to ask again, because I asked this to Sexton, where do you think that the idea originally came from, that this neighborhood needs this revitalization? And where does that come from? And is it political? Where did that idea originally come from? Because so far in some of the discussions, that hasn't been there when we're talking to some people. I mean, I can say the opposite too, because I spoke to some people yesterday who do agree, but the students are hearing that a little bit. Where did that idea originally manifest from?
I think there's like urban life and city life and stuff. There's a very boxed way of thinking, at least in Copenhagen, but I think it's pretty widespread that to create a good city life, you must have cafe, you must have like at least 3 boys skateboarding, and then maybe a parkour lane, and that's sort of a city life. And I don't think that that's what they need or want out here, especially. So, but I definitely think that they need, and also maybe a lot of them want, some sort of renewal. Because when you walk in the streets, it is. Well, so I think that what they need here is some sort of identity. So like, so that could also, if they had a strong identity for this area, it would also connect people together because they were feeling, okay, yeah, I live in St. Kjeld instead of, okay, I live in Østerbro.
Yeah.
So I think that's what they need. But I mean, part of what we're doing and the students are doing are, in my point of view, investigating what are the needs actually, or what is going to happen here.
But
So,
it is political.
Yeah, of course it's political.
It's all the city areas in Copenhagen has to get a lot of new infrastructure or new parks, and there's a lot of non-used spaces here. Who's like from I don't know 50, 60 years ago or something.
Yeah.
And then the city hall and the development guys is like thinking, okay, we have to do something about this area. But that's normal thinking. We have to do something. We have to make a new park and a new lane and da da da. But the good thing is though that the good thing is that they have a local secretary here who is like thinking in that way, and it's open for the temporariness. Yeah, thank you. Of course, it starts political. I don't think the Østerbro citizens is like, we want a new St. Kjeld because we need a new image. We want find out a new self. No, I don't think that. But it could be good if it was like that. But sometimes people who's living in an area is not aware. That's one of our questions to the student was, how do we get people to know that the urban space is up for grabs? That's our main cause, because they're not aware that they actually can use the city to things they like, if they can do it. And then there's a lot of, we call it non-spaces. How can you go from non-space to fun space? And there's a lot of non-spaces here. So how can we develop more fun spaces for the people's needs?
Yeah.
Actually.
It comes back to the students thinking, well, questioning really, where does this idea come from that this neighborhood needs to be revitalized in the first place, that people are happy? So why are they just telling us, why are these firms telling, where did the original idea come from that it needs to be revitalized? And I think I'm starting to understand the real answer behind that, because I think there is one. But I think it'd be important for them to be able to hear that question answered from you as well.
Yeah, good. But I'm looking forward to hearing your answer afterwards. A project like this is often done in a area that has a big need for this urban revitalization. But the strategy for the city of Copenhagen was to try to identify a neighborhood that showed a tendency towards social problems, but didn't have them yet. Because you see that neighborhoods often develop in slopes. You have a time where everything is going fine and it's fine, and then people kind of just forget about taking care of the neighborhood and it starts declining. And often you set in as the municipality or the state government when it's on the lowest point. You try to see, okay, now this is a really shitty neighborhood, what can we do? But the thinking in Copenhagen was that maybe if we try to do the initiative 5 or 10 years before we need to do it, maybe it will be easier to make sure that this neighborhood stays on top. So you'll have, this neighborhood is quite a well-functioning part of Copenhagen. You have certain areas within a neighborhood where you have social problems or you have property. But as a whole, this is a neighborhood on the level of the living standards and livability of the city of Copenhagen. But the idea is that if you go in before you have to, then it's much easier to deal with the problems.
Yeah, and it seems quite obvious in a lot of ways what the students have to gain from a trip, and they spend money to come here.
Yeah.
And there is a lot to learn and take back. But I want to know, I have my own ideas, but what are your, essentially going into a little bit more detail, what are your hopes, or what do you think that these students, or the students to come in the future rather, more than just this short time period, what can they really bring to the neighborhood and to the city of Copenhagen?
I think that the students would, well, they'll bring some knowledge. We're having this discussion today about the new sports coming to Denmark and how a lot of those new sports might originate in another country, often the US. If we are able to tap into some of these tendencies before everyone else here in Denmark, it gives us a head start if we're going to do this innovative project with a fund, whatever. But I think that the presence of students in an environment like this is a place in Copenhagen that has been overseen for a long time, and at least for the first couple of years, the people living here will find it quite interesting that someone is actually interested in the neighborhood and their way of living. They might be fed up with it in 5 years' time, you never know. But for now, I think it's a good experience for a lot of the people living here that they're stopped on the street, asked a question about why, what do they like or dislike about the neighborhood. So that kind of generates a positive feeling that someone cares about my life. It also gives them the opportunity to reflect about what is the good life and how would I like to change my neighborhood if I could, which qualifies them for the dialogue that we're having with them. So when we're meeting them later on, they might actually have thought about what's good in my neighborhood or what would I like changed based on an encounter with a US student a couple of months before.